Alright guys, so this is a real customer review of the EcoFlow Delta 3 Max Plus. At this point, I've owned multiple EcoFlow products, all purchased with my own money, and with the release of this new Max Plus model, I decided to sell my Delta 3 Plus and purchase this new model. And here I'm going to show you guys why I still prefer EcoFlow as a product, and do a full detailed walk around and review of this new Delta 3 Max Plus. So the main reason why I still choose EcoFlow, even though Blue Yeti, Anchor, and a ton more brands exist, is due to the quality and the features of EcoFlow. EcoFlow is essentially the premium brand here, and the things that make this premium compared to the competition are a combination of the aesthetics, performance, and overall features. In terms of the aesthetics, this is pretty self-explanatory. The unit looks pretty sleek, and I will point out that the display on the EcoFlow units are bigger than average for the industry, which is something I really like. Here you can see data like watts coming in, watts going out, whether or not it's acting as a UPS, if you have solar connected. Essentially all of that data is displayed here. Now on the performance, the inverter here is a pretty massive 3000 watts, and they split it up into two separate AC zones. And this allows you to have greater control in the app and essentially use it as a smart outlet. We have a modern USB layout with 3 Type-Cs and 1 legacy USB-A port, which is the proper configuration in 2026. And around back we have dual solar inputs, a proprietary expandable battery port, and even a high output universal Anderson 30 amp DC port, along with a legacy car jack. It literally has everything, and that's why the price tag here is higher than average. I paid $1,100 for this 2 kilowatt-hour power station, and that's while the competition is more around the $800 price point. But keep in mind, this Plus model is really in a category of its own, and the non-Plus model is really the comparable unit, which has less features but cost $800. Now, one of the most important things to understand about power stations is the idle power consumption. This affects all of your calculations as to how long you can power various devices. And to find out the numbers for this unit, I did 3 separate tests where I left the power station on for 10 consecutive hours. The first time I had the inverter completely off, so we had just the DC USB ports active. Then I tested with the AC on, both zone 1 and 2, followed by my final test where I had only one of the AC zones active, just to see if that made any kind of difference. And I found that with just the DC USB ports active, the unit only lost 2% over 10 hours, which equals about 4 watts per hour, which is essentially nothing. Now the following test was with both AC zones on, and here we lost 12% over 10 hours, which came to 24 watts per hour. Then the final test was with just one of the AC zones on, and here we lost 10% over the 10 hours, or 20 watts per hour. So it was a little bit different than having both zones on, but this could be within the margin of error, and if I ran the test multiple times, the difference might go away. Now overall, these numbers are pretty solid given the large 3000 watt inverter, only consuming 20 to 24 watts per hour, and the DC power consumption was exceptional at only 4 watts. So if you want, you can leave this thing on all the time and use the USB ports without any real negative consequences. And focusing a little bit more on this theme of DC power efficiency, this is why a lot of people are excited for the new Anderson high output 30 amp DC port on the back. Because using this, you can wire a standard DC distribution block and power things like lights, fans, water pumps very efficiently, potentially helping to eliminate the amount of time you need to have the inverter on, and thus getting more actual usable capacity out of this power station. And in a future video, I might show you guys how to use this DC output to essentially expand the capacity of this power station. And if you guys want to see that, definitely subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, speaking of battery expansion, we do have the official port to do this, and EcoFlow does sell both a 2 kilowatt unit and a 4 kilowatt unit. But here I'll just say that I'm not a huge fan of the first-party expansion battery packs. These tend to be extremely expensive, and they use a proprietary port, meaning that they're only useful with the EcoFlow power station. And this is by design. The goal here is to make it extremely difficult to switch brands if a better competing power station comes out in the future. But let's move on and talk about the AC charging. I really like how this is fully customizable in the app, allowing you to either have super fast charging up to 1800 watts, or you can slow it down and have less strain on the battery. Next to that, we have the DC charging, which includes two XT60 ports rated for 18 amps, 11 to 60 volts. And combined, this is good for a maximum of 1000 watts of usually solar input. But another really interesting use case for these ports is a DC to DC charger. One great option is from Blue Yeti. They make a universal DC to DC charger. And because we have two XT60 ports, you can have one of them occupied by a solar panel and the other by a DC to DC charger. And that's the main reason why I like having two DC inputs on this unit. But with that said, I do wish that the voltage for these ports was a little bit higher. So again, it's limited to 60 volts, 18 amps. And I really think they should be compatible with up to 100, maybe 120 volts, as that would make them way more versatile, especially when it comes to having larger, more complex solar configurations. Also, for my OCD, I think 20 amps instead of 18 would have been nice as well. But essentially, that's the new EcoFlow Delta 3 Max Plus. It's an expensive and premium 2 kWh power station, but it does have all of the latest top-end features and specifications. It has a powerful and efficient 3000 watt inverter. I'm a big fan of the big display and having the proper configuration of USB ports. The accompanying app is one of the best in the industry, and because they split up the AC ports into two separate zones, it gives you even more control in that app. Then around back, we have the option for expandability, that really unique high output DC Anderson port, and dual XT60 DC charging options. And I think my only reservations here, aside from the price, is the voltage of those dual XT60 ports. If these had a rating of 100, 120 volts, then I think this power station would essentially be perfect. But that's only as long as this noise doesn't bother you. Now, if you guys can hear that high-pitched noise after the inverter clicks on, that's what I'm talking about. It's relatively low volume, but when the inverter is on, I've noticed that it makes this constant high-pitched noise. Again, maybe some of you guys can't hear it, but I can, and I keep this thing on my desk very close by, and it can be rather annoying. And I did contact customer support. They replied super quick like usual, and they said that the noise was normal, so it's something to keep in mind. I'll go ahead and leave the Amazon listing below the video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.